Football has its fair share of wild stories, but what's crazier than suing your own 19-year-old daughter to get back some football memorabilia? Believe it or not, Neville Southall's story doesn't stop there. It gets even wilder. Southall is no stranger to controversy, both on and off the pitch. One of the most memorable moments of his career came in 1990 during a match against Leeds United. Everton were trailing 2-0 at halftime, and Southall, clearly frustrated, staged what's now remembered as a sit-down protest. Instead of staying in the dressing room with the rest of the team, he came back onto the pitch early, sat down against a goalpost and just stayed there looking utterly defeated. Fans were stunned. Many saw it as disrespectful, an insult to the supporters, the club and even his manager, Howard Kendall. Southall later explained that it was all a big misunderstanding. He claimed he wasn't trying to make a statement or offend anyone. He was just deeply frustrated and needed a moment to himself. Still, the damage was done. The incident earned him a fine of a week's wages and a fair share of criticism. Off the pitch, Southall's life has been just as colourful. Over the years, he's become known for being outspoken, particularly on social media. His Twitter account is a mix of strong opinions, activism, and the occasional dose of football nostalgia. Southall has been a vocal advocate for LGBTQ+ and trans rights and isn't afraid to take a stand on political and social issues. He's also been highly critical of the UK government and hasn't held back when talking about injustices he sees in the world. While many admire his willingness to speak his mind, his boldness hasn't come without backlash. Some people see him as overly outspoken or even offensive, and his strong views have ruffled more than a few feathers in the football community. He's never been one to shy away from calling out hypocrisy or addressing uncomfortable truths, even if it means clashing with other figures in the sport. But perhaps the most jaw-dropping chapter of Southall's story came in 2004. In what might be one of football's most bizarre legal battles. Southall sued his own 19-year-old daughter to reclaim football memorabilia worth an estimated $55,000. The items included some of his most prized possessions, like his FA Cup winners' medal, MBE, and international caps. The twist? He had given these items to his daughter when she was just 10 years old. At the time, he claimed they were gifts, but years later, Southall insisted they had only been loaned to her and that he wanted them back. The case made headlines and sparked a lot of criticism. Many people couldn't believe a father would take his own child to court over something like this. The legal battle strained their relationship and added another layer of controversy to Southall's name. Moving on to his career and how it began, Southall's journey into football is anything but typical. School wasn't really Neville's thing. He left at 16 without any qualifications, but by then, football had already started shaping his life. At just 14, he went on a tour of Germany with the Swifts and even got a chance to join Fortuna Düsseldorf's youth setup. But moving to Germany at that age? That wasn't for him. So he stayed put, playing for a team that wasn't great but gave him a lot of practice. Being under fire all the time helped him sharpen his shot-stopping skills. Teenage Neville wasn't short on dreams, but becoming a footballer wasn't really one of them. He thought he'd end up being a postman. After failed trials at Wrexham, Crewe Alexandra and Bolton Wanderers, he figured football might just not be in the cards. So he took up jobs as a binman, a waiter, and even a carrier. But football never quite left him. At 15, he played for Llandudno Town, and soon after he joined Bangor City as a semi-pro, earning just $10 a week. Life at Bangor wasn't easy. The manager, Dave Elliott, mostly kept Neville on the bench in favour of an older goalkeeper. When Everton showed some interest, it seemed like his big break was coming. But before anything could happen, Elliott left Bangor, and Neville's chance fizzled out. With the club in financial trouble, Neville moved on to Conwy United for just £3 a week. It wasn't much, but it kept him playing. Then, at 20, he landed at Winsford United in the Cheshire County League. That turned out to be a turning point. Neville helped the team win the Cheshire Senior Cup in 1980 and was even voted their Player of the Year. It wasn't the glamorous start most football legends have, but it was the start of something incredible. Southall's skills in goal were starting to get noticed, and soon enough, both Bury and Wigan Athletics showed interest. It was Bury's manager, Dave Connor, who sealed the deal by personally convincing Neville to join. Winsford got $6,000 for the move, with a promise of another $25,000 later if Neville was sold on. Talk about a bargain for Bury. But just as Neville arrived, things changed. Connor was replaced by Jim Eiley before the season even kicked off. Despite the shake-up, Neville was still pegged as the heir to Bury's longtime goalkeeper, John Forrest. Even better, he got some proper goalkeeping coaching from Wilf McGuinness, a big deal for a player who had mostly learned on the job. Neville's big moment came on September 20th, 1980, when he made his debut in a 2-1 win against Wigan Athletic. The season that followed was a mixed bag for Bury. The team didn't set the 4th division on fire, but there were some highlights, like reaching the 3rd round of the FA Cup and beating Newcastle United in the League Cup. For Neville, it was a breakout year. Across 44 games, he managed 15 clean sheets, no small feat when you've got a leaky defence ahead of you. By the end of the season, he was recognised as both Bury's Player of the Year and Young Player of the Year. It was clear that big things were on the horizon for the lad from Llandudno. Southall's move to Everton in 1981 was the start of a legendary chapter in his career, but it didn't come easy. Everton manager Howard Kendall signed him for $150,000, a hefty sum back then, but Southall wasn't guaranteed a spot in the starting lineup. He had to fight for his place against a crowded goalkeeping roster that included Jim McDonough, Jim Arnold and Martin Hodge. When Arnold got injured, Neville seized the chance to make his debut in October, helping Everton to a 2-1 victory over Ipswich Town. By December, he was the first-choice keeper and didn't miss a game for the rest of the season. Kendall thought highly of Southall, calling him the best goalkeeper outside the elite trio of Ray Clements, Peter Shilton and Joe Corrigan, but it wasn't all smooth sailing. Neville began suffering from ulcerated toes, leaving his feet swollen and painful during matches. To make matters worse, in November 1982, Everton faced a brutal 5-0 defeat to Liverpool at Goodison Park. Kendall responded by shaking up the team and dropping Southall. For the first time, Neville had to prove himself all over again. In January 1983, he was sent on loan to Port Vale in the 4th Division. Southall played 9 matches for manager John McGrath, who was so impressed he tried to sign him permanently. However, Kendall wasn't ready to let him go. Neville returned to Everton and played the final 4 matches of the 1982-83 season, filling in after Jim Arnold was injured. The 1983-84 season started with Arnold as Everton's first-choice goalkeeper, but by October, Southall was back in the team. Everton struggled in the league, but shone in cup competitions, reaching the finals of both the League Cup and FA Cup. Neville's first trip to Wembley came in the League Cup final against Liverpool, where he kept a clean sheet in a goalless draw. Although Everton lost the replay, they bounced back in the FA Cup final, where Southall was rock solid, securing a 2-0 victory over Watford. It was Everton's first FA Cup win in over a decade. Neville's confidence grew, and so did his list of accolades. In 1984, Everton defeated Liverpool 1-0 in the Charity Shield, with Southall once again keeping a clean sheet. That season, Everton stormed to the league title, losing only 3 of their last 37 matches. Along the way, Southall made critical saves, including a stunning point-blank stop against Tottenham's Mark Falco in a pivotal 2-1 win. The team also excelled in Europe, winning the European Cup Winners' Cup by beating Rapid Wien in the final. Southall conceded just 1 goal in the entire tournament, cementing his reputation as one of the world's best goalkeepers. Despite these successes, disappointment followed. English clubs were banned from European competitions after the Heysel Stadium disaster, and Neville remained bitter, believing UEFA used the tragedy as an excuse to halt English dominance. Back home, Everton started the 1985-86 season strong, but injuries, including Neville twisting his ankle ligaments, disrupted their momentum. His deputy, Bobby Mims, stepped in, but Everton lost both the league title and FA Cup final to Liverpool. Southall returned from injury for the 1986-87 season and helped Everton win another league title. This victory felt even sweeter, as the team had to work harder compared to their dominant campaign 2 years earlier. After Kendall left Everton for Athletic Bilbao, Colin Harvey took over as manager and Southall thrived under his leadership. In the 1987-88 season, Everton finished 4th and conceded just 27 goals, a club record. However, the late 80s brought challenges, key players left and replacements didn't live up to expectations. Everton's performances became inconsistent and Southall voiced his frustration, calling out the team's mediocrity. Despite the struggles, Neville continued to shine, keeping goal in high-stakes matches like the emotional 1989 FA Cup final against Liverpool, which came in the aftermath of the Hillsborough disaster. Liverpool edged out a 3-2 victory in extra time, but Southall's efforts were widely praised. As the 90s rolled in, Everton's decline became more evident. Southall requested a transfer before the 1990-91 season, frustrated with the club's direction. His infamous moment of sitting by the goalpost at half-time during a game against Leeds United, a 3-2 loss, led to a fine and speculation about his future. Manchester United's Alex Ferguson even considered signing him, but Neville's gruff phone demeanour ended that possibility. Howard Kendall returned to manage Everton, steadying the ship temporarily, but the club's form remained shaky. Southall stayed loyal, even as Everton flirted with relegation. In the 1994-95 season, Joe Royle took over as manager and revitalised the team. Southall played a key role in their FA Cup run, making crucial saves to help Everton win the final 1-0 against Manchester United. At this point, Southall became Everton's most decorated player. The mid-90s saw Southall receive a testimonial match against Celtic and an MBE for his services to football. Even the Queen mistakenly thought he was retiring, but Neville wasn't ready to hang up his gloves just yet. Despite rumours of replacements and tensions with managers, Southall stayed committed, signing a new 2-year deal. Everton's form remained inconsistent, but Southall's performances continued to stand out. By 1997, at the age of 39, Southall's time at Everton was coming to an end. He made his final appearance for the club in a 2-0 defeat to Tottenham. Refusing a coaching role, he went in search of more playing time. Brief stints followed at Southend United and Stoke City, where he experienced the struggles of clubs battling at the bottom of their leagues. These were challenging times for Neville, but they marked the final chapter of an extraordinary career. In June 1999, after Bobby Gould's resignation, he briefly stepped up as Wales's caretaker manager alongside Mark Hughes. Their one match in charge, a 2-0 loss to Denmark at Anfield, marked the end of Southall's stint, with Hughes taking the reins permanently. While playing for Torquay United, Southall began exploring coaching, working with Huddersfield Town and Tranmere Rovers as a goalkeeping coach. He took on player coach roles at clubs like York City, Rhyl, Shrewsbury Town, and Dagenham and Redbridge. Then, in December 2001, he became manager of Dover Athletic, but his time there was cut short just months later when new owners promoted his assistant instead. Ever the teacher, Southall dived into coaching young people from tough backgrounds, setting up soccer skills, and later worked in special education. He even founded an educational consultancy for young people not in school or work. Southall returned to management with Hastings United in 2004, but left a year later due to clashes with the chairman. By 2008, he was assistant manager at Margate, and when Terry Yorath stepped down, Neville found himself back in the hot seat as caretaker manager. And that wraps up today's video. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching.